Good morning, and welcome to All People's Church, Unitarian Universalist. My name is Laurie McKitka, and I am your co-celebrant this morning. Our Sunday service is a shared time of worship for all present as we gather for music, spoken words, a time of reflection, and inspiration as a religious community. Let us come together in a spirit of compassion and respect for ourselves and for others attending this service. We especially welcome those who are visiting today. If you haven't yet done so, please sign in at the visitors table by the front door, where you can be placed on our mailing list to receive weekly emails and the monthly newsletter. Before we continue on to worship, there are some announcements. There is the Juneteenth Walk with Opal Parade March. It's tomorrow, Monday the 19th at 10:45. Jane, that would be Jane Collins, I assume, is marching and would love company. Please see PB or Jane for more info. Not sure who PB is. Oh, it's an F. It's FB, Facebook. Okay, I was a little confused. And also, Pride, LGBTQ Saves has had Pride swag under the tree in Coleman. Help yourself. There's all kinds of Pride swag out there. And don't forget Interfaith Pride on Tuesday the 20th. At Celebration Community Church. We can, and Michael Cepeda, I know, is going to be there. You can carpool from the church if you like at 6:30. And then Trinity Pride. We are members of the Inclusive Faith Coalition of Tarrant County. And we would like some help with the booth at Trinity Pride, which is over on, I think it's called Magnolia Green. It's at Magnolia and Hemp Hill. Take a 1-hour shift. I am signed up from 8 to 9. I decided to wait till it was maybe a little cooler, 8 to 9 in the evening. And you can either go on our Facebook page, there's a link to sign up, or talk to Sarah. And I think, oh yes, and it's Don't Forget to Feed Me Sunday. Joe needs to be up here. So get your money out to help pets stay with the people who love them. See Joe or Carl after the service. Every dollar helps, and we've been a big supporter, so let's continue to do that. Okay, those were announcements. Our final announcement is an introduction of Lori, who is in the pulpit again this morning after way too long. Do you see? They agree. Lori King Nelson is a cradle roll disciple growing up in Fort Worth First Christian Church, the church her family has called home since 1917. Lori is a member of Pastors for Texas Children and is active in the Disciples of Christ community, filling the pulpit in area disciples churches volunteering at Disciples food pantries, and occasionally providing church services for Juliet Fowler communities. She is a lifelong learner, an artist, and an avid traveler, having lived across the U.S. and internationally. Lori holds a Bachelor of Science in Comparative Religious Studies from Texas Wesleyan University and a Master of Divinity from Bright Divinity School at TCU. Lori currently serves as Program Director of the Dallas Furniture Bank, a nonprofit that provides the basic furniture needs for people transitioning from homelessness and other crises. Lori has 4 children, 3 grandchildren, a flock of chickens, an enormous potbelly pig named Crispy Bacon, and a duck named Quackers. Lori, welcome back to All People's Church. And now, please settle comfortably for our musical prelude.
I am so glad to be back here again, and I want you to know that I now have 2 ducks. We don't know where the other one came from, but they heard that the living was good at my house, and so we call her Friendly Duck. And she will walk right up to you and ask you to pick her up and pet her, and we have no idea, but we just love her. A few days ago, she walked up to my son Dimitri and got his attention and kept urging him to go over to the corner of the yard where she had laid an egg. And so he brought the egg in and put it in the incubator, so soon we will have 3 ducks. Look, I need to move. I need more space. But life is good. Life is good. Will you join me in preparing ourselves with the call to worship? Starting here, what do you want to remember? How sunlight creeps along a shining floor? What scent of old wood hovers? What softened sound from outside fills the air? Will you ever bring a better gift for the world than the breathing respect that you carry wherever you go right now? Are you waiting for time to show you some better thoughts? When you turn around, starting here, lift this new glimpse that you found. Carry into evening all that you want from this day. This interval you spent reading or hearing this, keep it for life. What can anyone give you greater than now? Starting here, right in this room, when you turn around.
We invite you to rise in body or spirit for the chalice lighting, opening hymn, and spoken affirmation. Our chalice lighting words come to us from the Oberlin UU Fellowship in Ohio. We light this chalice to find inner peace, love for one another, and faith in ourselves. Also to be welcoming to whomever we meet and kind to all living creatures. So gather around the light of hope as we share this time together. Please join now in singing our opening hymn, number 404, What Gift Can We Bring? Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve others in community, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with creation. Thus do we covenant with one another.
if we have any young people. Do we? Well, I would love to have the young at heart, and I will sit down here with whoever would like to, and I'm just going to read something. I will not sit down like that because I will not get up. So this is not only Father's Day, but it is Juneteenth. And so I chose something to read that is written by Antoine C. Wright, and it's titled, "This Juneteenth and Father's Day, Let's Offer True Absolute Equality." On June 19, 1865, nearly 3 years after the Emancipation Proclamation and 2 months after General Robert E. Lee's surrender at Appomattox, Major General Gordon Granger issued General Order No. 3, notifying the people of Texas that, in accordance with a proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free. For countless black men and women, those were the words they had been waiting to hear their entire lives. Slavery was over, and the joy that they felt in that moment echoes still across time in our Juneteenth celebrations today, especially with the designation to make Juneteenth a federal holiday. This year, our Juneteenth celebration falls the day before Father's Day, and somehow that feels right to me. It feels right because today, 156 years after Granger's proclamation of absolute equality between former masters and former slaves, America's black men, our sons, brothers, and fathers, are facing a crisis. Some evidence of this. Unemployment is nearly twice as high for black men than white, and black men have the highest unemployment of all race gender groups in America. In other words, black men are more likely to be unemployed in the United States than anyone else. Only about 28% of black men ages 25 to 29, have a bachelor's degree or higher, compared to 30% of black women, 40% of white men, and nearly half of white women. Black men have the highest COVID-19 death rates in the nation. 1 in 3 black men can expect to go to prison at least once in their lives, and statistics show 1 in 1,000 black men will be killed by police. While black men make up only about 6% of the U.S. population, we comprise 32% of the prison population. Compare that to white men, who make up 30% of the country's population and 27% of the prison population. So how many black children might not get to see their dad this Father's Day because he's in prison? How many will grow up without a father because he was killed? Moreover, what harm does it do to a generation of children to watch their families, particularly their fathers, face the same struggles again and again simply because of the color of their skin? Does that sound like absolute equality to you? Does it sound like the America you love? For example, can you imagine what it's like to see your father berated, belittled, and handcuffed just because he forgot to use the turn signal while driving? Perhaps you can't relate to a reality that says you're never going to get a fair shake because black men are expendable and that's all you'll ever be, a black man. Maybe you can't understand what it's like to watch your father work long hours only to be called lazy or hopeless or a waste of time. But we can do something about this. There's a reason that GOP-controlled legislatures across the country are rushing to adopt draconian voter suppression measures. I feel like I'm preaching to the choir. This woman knows everything about this. There's a reason that conservative commentators cheer the increased number of black men who have cast ballots for the Republican candidates in recent elections, even as the GOP tries to tamp down black voter turnout. There's a reason that Republican justice reform proposals refuse to ban chokeholds, no-knock warrants, the militarization of law enforcement, and qualified immunity, hoping we won't notice there are no apples in the apple pie. There's a reason that conservatives shout culture war so often. It's so that they don't have to vote to raise wages, don't have to invest in rural schools or health care for all, and don't have to pass infrastructure investment that creates jobs for black people. They hope we won't notice, but we do. We always do. So it's time to stop playing games. It's time to end the crisis affecting black men. It's time to live up to that 156-year-old proclamation of absolute equality. We can change America. And I can't think of a better Juneteenth tribute or Father's Day gift than doing so. Thanks for coming down and being my young people.
The purpose of the church is to encourage all who gather there to grow more generous in spirit and action. This is the great end of all the world's faith traditions, to bring the human being closer to the divine by acts of creation and compassion. We now take an offering that allows us to exercise that all. Important generosity of spirit, an offering that will support this self-supporting church and its many ministries. It is our custom to share the undesignated cash offerings that are collected each week. We do this on a quarterly basis for a nonprofit or charitable organization. Our current Share the Plate recipient is the Texas UU Justice Ministry, the statewide network in Austin whose mission is to educate and advocate for public policies that reflect our UU values. The offering will now be accepted. Will the ushers please come forward?
You know, it's a treat to get here a little bit early and hear the choir rehearsing, because then you get to hear those voices several times in a morning. Thank you so much for bringing us this beautiful music. The reading I have this morning is called Coniferous Fathers, and it is by Michael Kleber-Diggs. Michael Kleber-Diggs is the author of Worldly Things, which was awarded the 2020 Max Rittvo Poetry Prize. He was born and raised in Kansas and now lives in St. Paul, Minnesota. His work has appeared in Lit Hub, The Rumpus, Rain Taxi, McSweeney's Internet Tendency, Waterstone Review, Midway Review, North Dakota Quarterly, and a few anthologies. Michael teaches poetry and creative nonfiction through the Minnesota Prison Writers Workshop. Let's fashion gentle fathers, expressive, holding us how we wanted to be held before we could ask. Singing off-key lullabies written for us, songs every evening like possibilities. Fathers who say, "This is how you hold a baby," but never mention a football. Say nothing in that moment. Just bring us up to their chests naturally, without shyness. Let's grow fathers from pine, not oak. Coniferous fathers raising us in their shade. Fathers soft enough to bend. Fathers who love us like their fathers couldn't. Fathers who can talk about menstruation while playing a game of pepper in the front yard. No, take baseball out. Let's discover a new sort. Fathers as varied and as vast as the superior forest. Let's kill off sternness and play down wisdom. Give us fathers of laughter and fathers who cry. Fathers who say, "Check this out," or "I'm scared," or "I'm sorry," or even, "I don't know." Give us fathers strong enough to admit that they want to be near us, that they've always wanted to be near us. Give us fathers desperate for something different. Not Johnny Appleseed, not even Atticus Finch. No more Rolling Stones. No more lazy boy dads reading newspapers in some other room. Let's create folklore side by side in a garden, singing psalms about abiding. Just that, abiding. Being steadfast, present, evergreen, and ethereal. Let's make the old needles soft enough for us to rest on, dream on, next to them.
At this time in our service, we pause to honor and to give time and attention to those things most important to us. We gather here for healing and for peace in our hearts and in the world, and honor our time together with shared stories and news from the congregation. Each week there is a journal outside the entrance to the sanctuary where you can write a message of memory or hope. Also, at any time during our service, you are welcome to come forward and light a candle in our meditation center here at the side of the chancel. And I don't have anything in the book of memory and hope today, but also let us also include in our circle of concern those beyond our immediate community. Heather Cox Richardson recently wrote, "People are wrong to say that we have no heroes left. Just as they have always been, they are all around us. choosing to do the right thing no matter what. I would like to recognize our heroes, those people in our midst that in small or large ways help to initiate much needed changes in our communities and in our world. People like Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King, and Dad. Let us open our minds and hearts to the place of quiet, to the silent prayer for the healing of pain, and to the soft, gentle coming of love. Please now settle comfortably and pause for a few moments of quiet meditation to hold and uplift the sorrows and celebrations, both spoken and unspoken among us, and then Misha will lift our hearts with music.
So this afternoon, in honor of both Father's Day and Juneteenth, I will be leaving after service and driving down to Waco and meeting up with a group of clergy friends who are going to be visiting with the children of a number of fathers who are currently incarcerated here in Texas. I've not done this with them before, so keep me in your prayers. Hopefully I will have the right words to say or to not say, because sometimes just being there is the best thing. This poem is called You're Welcome. We got used to the moon glow read-alouds and the stars shining sing-alongs, the little lights of mine and the Hogwarts gong, the cuddling, the dozing off, in your queen-size bed, the bad dreams, the crack of lightning that led you climbing in mine, the thank you, Daddy, for playing apples and bananas, for the French toast at dinner time, the dressing up in long gowns, the forgetting to brush, the occasional frown, the counting in Swahili, the school plays, the monkey bars, the long hugs, the way you cried when Mommy left for a weekend or just a lunch date or a bath. We got used to those things. But then the storm stopped bothering you, and your kisses were pithy, and your bed got smaller, and your door stayed shut, and Hermione was a feminist, and she wore Gucci, and your shorts got shorter, and your tops cropped higher, and your friends met you at the park, and you made up your own mind, and everything was just fine, and Doja Cat. And your mother and I went for a walk on the golden morning you started high school, and we didn't say a word. We just watched the yesterdays of our modern family disappear. And I put my headphones on, and I listened to Raffi, and it started raining, like the sky was crying, and I became the sky, and the sun was saying, it's a new day, you're welcome. You've heard me speak of Kwame Alexander before. I shared his crowdsourced poem about change some months ago. In his new book, Why Fathers Cry at Night, a memoir in love, poems, letters, recipes, and remembrances, he explores the influence of his own father on his ability to be a husband and a father, knowing that generationally, fatherhood, with all its faults and fortunes, ties us to the past in ways we often do not recognize, and occasionally in ways we later regret. It isn't always pretty. To be honest, there is so much courage in his vulnerability and ownership of his mistakes that my heart hurt for him. Ralph Eubank says this book serves as a guide for every man in how to show tears and disappointments in the open and not just under the veil of darkness. He calls it a brave monument to love, loss, and life by a man whose cries in the night helped him to grow and grieve. Kwame Alexander reflects on his own need for change and, in turn, prompts other fathers to reflect on what lessons they are passing on to their children. I've been thinking a lot about how love looks and how I never saw my parents hold each other's hands. About how I'd come in from school and see my mother striding across the kitchen floor singing Que Sera, Sera, while my father sat in his chair listening to the news, writing a sermon, talking on the phone, about never seeing them touch. Dr. John Minahan shares this. A number of years ago, I was a stay-at-home dad, and my car needed new shocks. I gathered up my young daughter and headed off to the auto supply store. The clerk looked up the part, told me I had a couple of choices, then entered into a lengthy discussion with another clerk about brand, quality, and cost. With my daughter now fast asleep against my shoulder, I had to ask these two clerks, both of them young women, to hurry it along since I needed to get home in time to do the laundry and start supper. He goes on to say, as I have often seen when telling this story, its effect resides in perceived irony. A man caring for a child and running a household has to deal with two women in the auto parts business. Despite changes in our ideas about gender roles over the past several generations, the idea of a man taking the essence of his identity from the fact of domestic responsibility remains just a little amusing, and maybe even problematic. Fatherhood has undergone a dramatic change over the last 30 to 40 years. There's no denying that. Dads are far more involved in this generation than previous ones. I see them not only present for the birth of their children, but also sharing those important first moments of skin-on-skin contact and actively creating an immediate and lasting bond. They spend 3 times as many hours with their kids than our dads did. They are more present and connected. But even more important than that, they are more confident in practicing a fatherhood that allows for mistakes and apologies and vulnerabilities and the undoing of previous parental norms. Sure, we had TV shows growing up that depicted single dads. And y'all probably could name more than me. My 3 Sons, Andy Griffith, and others. But they always seemed to diminish their abilities by showing them bumbling about the kitchen or having difficulty buying groceries without a woman coming to their rescue, or doing laundry or housework or whatever thing was not considered an appropriate male gender role. Minahan calls this storytelling gold because it shows the father's place is in the office and that his presence in the home is simply funny and pathetic. A prominent pediatrician, Dr. Craig Garfield, remembers putting his own practice on hold as his wife completed medical school and residency. The idea of someone else raising their children didn't sit well with either of them. And so, together, they decided he would stay at home for the next few years. He endured all of the dismissive comments from teachers and from mothers at the park and grocery stores. Over time, Craig realized that there was a golden opportunity for dads to reframe what fatherhood means for the family by leaving behind the stigma and the stereotypes of stay-at-home dads. And, equally important, was the truth that until it becomes unremarkable for men to play an equal role in domestic life, it will remain remarkable for women to have true equality in the workforce. And wow, that's going to stick with me the rest of my life, that one sentence. He began making it his mission to discuss these harmful stigmas and stereotypes with parents sharing the ways in which this harms the father-child relationship and hinders equality. In the end, all of this allows us to create a healthier, more confident next generation. Honesty with our children about our own struggles with gender and parental roles, and transparency about the work we are doing to do better shows us that one of the greatest agents for change is to turn up and try. Make sure I'm reading the right ones. This is from Kwame Alexander's journal. October 13th, 2010. I just spent 15 glorious minutes cutting a peanut butter sandwich into 4 perfect parallelograms because the 2-year-old will only eat them if they are cut in parallelograms. I tried to trick her and made one a square, to which she replied, "That's not a parallelogram." I have 2 daughters, a 20-year-old and a 2-year-old. They are the world that I live in. They are the love that owns me. They are the tulips in my garden, sweet, showy, and full of color. They are my dreams come true. May 5th, 2011. The 2-year-old didn't want to go to Montessori today. In the car on the way to school, she starts singing Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, all loud and whatnot, like she was Harriet Tubman and I was trying to keep her from her freedom. June 29th, 2011. The 2-year-old just got put into timeout by the mother. Now she's crying, calling my name to come rescue her. So naturally, I'm walking to her room to soothe her when I come upon the mother. Now I'm in timeout. June 16th, 2012. This from the daughter who is studying abroad in Italy. I love you so much. You have been there for me through good and bad. I'm really thankful and blessed that you helped me make this study abroad experience happen for me. You're amazing, not only to me, but also to my sister. Thank you for being a father and doing all that you can for your daughters. P.S. Please put $100 in my account. I'm kind of broke. It would be greatly appreciated. June 29th, 2012. Your mom just called. I'm proud of you and all the good work you are doing. I really did a good job raising you, but I do want to apologize for all the spankings. We learn how to parent, not just from our own parents, but from parents and adults in our extended community, some of whom failed miserably, some of whom are remarkable. I didn't know my grandfathers. They died long before I was born. But I do know they were both men with what those generations called demons. Violent and alcoholic, absent, harsh, both learned from the generation before them that to be a real man, one had to be hard living, hard drinking, and a strict disciplinarian when it came to raising children. My dad quit school and worked several jobs to pay a crop duster pilot to teach him to fly. He escaped that small town, Central Texas oil field city life. Like his father and grandfather before him, he was an alcoholic. Unlike them, he was not a strict disciplinarian. He was, in fact, what you might call a softie. He used to call us names like pumpkin and magpie and sweet pea, and walked like Frankenstein when we wrapped ourselves around his legs as he came in from work. Once I used his entire can of shaving cream to put flowers on top of the weeds in our yard. He came and stood next to me and declared them to be the most beautiful flowers he had ever seen. He brought home things like monkeys, skunks, raccoons, hawks, rabbits, and horses, teaching us how to care for them. And they lived with us just like our dogs and cats. And you see where I get it now. When the city forced us to relocate our menagerie, he bought land and built us a house and a barn. He drove us around in his rusty old El Camino to visit his friends and his cousins and his mother. From him, I learned that I was connected to something much larger than just my siblings. The land, the wildlife, people. One of the greatest gifts he gave me was the confidence to go out into the world knowing he would always be just a phone call or a visit away to laugh with me or cry with me or share my triumphs and failures. The other great gift he gave me was when I was 13. That was when he quit drinking for good. And for the next 15 years, I stood in awe of this man who somehow found the strength to completely change the narrative he had been born into. He was a good man and an honest man. And I will never know how much courage it took to leave behind the stigma and stereotype of a previous generation. Nor will I ever know how many tears he shed or regrets he carried. But I know that he owned his mistakes and admitted them and always, always loved each of us unconditionally. I feel that he carried the weight of his father's and his father's father's failures until he died. And that was his impetus to change. He was far from perfect, but he left me with a deep understanding of how toxic fatherhood could cross generations, and of the extraordinary promise of change that grows better dads for the future. March 2nd, 2012. Whenever I'm headed out for travel, the 3.5-year-old attaches herself to my leg and hollers that she does not want her daddy to leave her. This is the worst part of doing the job that I love. I simply can't take her with me every time. So recently I started a new ritual. I went to Target and purchased a ton of those $1 trinkets, stickers, books, cups, bubbles, games, etc. Each time I leave for work, I give her wrapped gifts totaling the number of days I will be gone. So if I'm gone for 3 days, she gets 3 gifts. And she can only open 1 gift per day. The first time, it worked wonderfully. She didn't holler when she held onto my leg. The second time, there was no leg grabbing. After? Well, last night I left to speak at a conference in New York. I would be gone for 1 day, so I gave her 1 quickly wrapped gift. As I headed out the door, she looked at me and said, "Daddy, when are you going to be gone 10 days?" And then she kissed me goodbye. April 7th, 2012. In the mornings, like her older sister, the 3.5-year-old can be a little ornery. So this morning, when she comes down the stairs, I put on this song and I start dancing. She looks at me like I've lost it. But then her head starts twitching and her feet start jiggling, and then she starts throwing her hands in the air and waving like she just don't care. And before long, we're both grinning and dancing around the living room like we're in the audience of the Ellen Show or something. April 27th, 2012. What I didn't tell you is that when we do our morning dance, the little one dances like Elaine on Seinfeld. November 7th, 2013. Me, dreaming about a cupcake and a frog. Dad. What? Dad, I'm doing a painting. Daddy's sleeping. Oh, it's going to be a portrait. Oh, right. You're studying artist in school, right? Jacob Lawrence? Dad, that was last year. It's Van Gogh. Well, yeah, Van Gogh. No, it's Van Gogh. Okay. I want to close by saying that our fathers and those father figures that have been present in our lives, whether physically or portrayed in books or movies or television, have not just been our own. They have been an example for others as well, and they have either promoted growth or stifled change in those who have been in some way connected or exposed to them. I feel that in the same way women have historically been shut out of the professional world, men have also lost on the parenting front. And both of these losses have hurt generation after generation. But it is changing. Men are reclaiming their place in children's lives, allowing themselves to be loving, engaging, and present parents, and raising healthier and more emotionally grounded children. As Kwame Alexander began to write this book, he was working through some deeply painful issues with his father, and was also estranged from his oldest daughter. As he reflected on his own internalization of emotions that were a product of his experience, he understood that he had not allowed his daughter to see how this had framed his idea of fatherhood. By being honest and open about his upbringing, he was able to begin the healing process with her, and that led to greater insights into his own relationship with his father, and ultimately, a little peace and closure. So be the dad that cries without apology or embarrassment. Be the dad that tells your kids the good and the bad about how you were raised. Be the dad that celebrates boys who are gentle and girls who are tough, or both being whoever they are. Be the dad that cares more about raising healthy children than filling a gender role. Cut food into Pero yellow glams. Paint some Van Gogh. And put some money into their account. They really are broke until they're around 40. Be the dad who welcomes change, because that's the dad who won't need to cry at night. Be cool, or at least cool adjacent. Will you join us in the closing hymn, 131, Love Will Guide Us?
Never has it been more true than now. We extinguish this flame, but the sparks within us remain alight. From each of us, in our supposed solitude, the signals buzz and hum, sparkling through space one to another, connecting us invisibly but palpably. We are one, and from every window our light shines.
The 10 reasons why fathers cry at night. Because teenagers don't like park springs or long walks anymore unless you're in the mall. Because holding her hand is forbidden and kisses are lethal. Because school was fine, her day was fine, and yes, she's fine, so why is she weeping? Because you want to help, but you can't read minds. Because she's in love, and that's cute until you find his note asking her to prove it. Because she didn't prove it. Because next week she's in love again, and this time it's real, and she says her heart is heavy. Because she yearns to take long walks in the park with him. Because you remember the myriad woes and wonders of your own spring desire. Because with trepidation and thrill, you watch your daughter who suddenly wants to swing all by herself.